Rick. You guys let me know when we're good to go. Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Rick. This is a regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Montclair and is being broadcast live on Channel 34 and is streaming live on Montclair TV 34 YouTube channel. It is available on demand and can and will be rebroadcast. This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. This meeting was included in the annual notice of the meeting schedule as set forth in Resolution R-2187 adopted by the Council at its regular meeting of December 1, 2020, advertised in the official paper December 31st, 2020, and January 7, 2021, posted in the bulletin boards outside the municipal building and has remained continuously posted. In addition, a copy of the annual notice is and has been available to the public and is on file with the Township Clerk. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America
and to the republic
It stands one nation under God, indivisible.
Indivisible
For all.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Roll call, please.
Councillor Cummings,
present.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock,
Present.
Councillor Price Abrams,
Present.
Councillor Russo,
Present.
Councillor Schlager,
Here.
Councillor Yacobelis,
Present.
Mayor Spiller.
Present. Thank you. And so, adopting the agenda with flexibility, I'm going to move us to proclamation. And today we do have a very special proclamation. And my colleagues, just give you the alert here. If you'll join me, I'm going to read the first paragraph. Deputy Mayor, I'm going to go to you if you don't mind doing the second paragraph. Council members Russo and Yacobelis, if you can split the third one, and then I'll go down for the last three. For the last three council people, I'll just go Councilman Schlager, Price Abrams, and then Councilman Cummings. The now therefore. All right, and we're all going to split it up because Sue, you know, we're all going to want a part in saying thank you to you for your wonderful work during not only this devastating time and difficult time, but your guidance in it was invaluable, but also all the years of service to the township. We really appreciate you. So
I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Whereas the mayor and council of the Township of Montclair, on behalf of the municipal staff and all Montclair residents, congratulate Susan B. Portuese, who is retiring July 2nd, 2021, after serving the township for over 36 years. And
Whereas Ms. Portuese, who began work with the township on April 8th, 1985, has served Montclair in several capacities. She began her career as a registered environmental health specialist and then as health officer, director of the Department of Health and Human Services. It is with the position as health officer and director that Sue has made her greatest impact and legacy of service. Ms. Portuese had direct supervision of the Montclair Health Department, the Senior Services, the Environmental Affairs, Section 8 Housing, and the Montclair Animal Shelter. Additionally, Ms. Portuese, through shared service agreements, serves as the covering health officer for the townships of Nutley, Cedar Grove, and Verona. During her tenure, Ms. Portuese has made a name for herself and the Township of Montclair as a leader in public health practices in New Jersey. And
Councilman Russo, start us off.
Whereas Sue's tireless leadership has been there throughout many public health crises, such as H1N1, Zika, Ebola, and most significantly and recently, the current COVID-19 pandemic. During the past year, Sue has worked continuously under extremely challenging conditions, supporting and guiding her staff and the communities on the most current CDC and NJDOH guidance. Sue has been a vital resource for providing guidance and decision-making for local emergency management, numerous schools and school superintendents, long-term care facilities, residents, businesses, and nonprofits. And Councilman?
Sue has had the responsibility of overseeing all COVID-19 case investigations and contact tracing for Montclair, Cedar Grove, and Verona. Sue organized COVID-19 testing for seniors, residents, and employees, also played a major role in not only securing COVID-19 vaccine inventory for Montclair, Nutley, Cedar Grove, and Verona Township, but also setting up COVID-19 clinics for our communities. Ms. Portuese has been instrumental in earning the Township of Montclair a Healthy Town designation from the New Jersey Healthcare Quality Institute for the third year in a row. Sue has secured and managed numerous grants, including lead prevention, vulnerable population outreach coordinators, MCIA, and CARES Act funding that have provided over $1.5 million in revenue for the township. And
Councilman Schlager, would you mind?
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay. Whereas Sue served as a member of the Montclair Community Farm, where she was instrumental in starting the mobile farm stand, which provides low-cost, fresh produce to low-income senior citizens. She served as a member of the Essex Regional Health Commission, which provides vital environmental health services to Essex County. Sue also served as the liaison of the Cedar Grove Advisory Health Council and the Alliance Coordinator for MCIA, and initiated the Montclair Mayor's Wellness Committee. And
whereas Sue is the devoted daughter of Don and Judy Kellerman and loving sister of Scott Kellerman, Sue was born and raised in Clark, New Jersey, and has remained extremely loyal to her Garden State. Sue graduated from the Rutgers University class of 1981 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Environmental Science, and Montclair State University class of 1989 with a Master of Arts degree in Environmental Management. Sue married Rich Portuese on September 11, 1988, and is a proud and loving mother to Michelle and Nicole. Sue's creative talents are many and will likely serve her well as she embarks on her next chapter. With a tremendous knack for painting, quilting, cake decorating, baking, and gardening, as well as a true love for the beach, traveling, and being outdoors, Sue will have many things to fill her newfound time. Sue has earned the respect and admiration of all who know her, and her dedication and commitment to the Township of Montclair have set a standard to which we all should strive to achieve, for sure.
Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the Township of Montclair and the County of Essex hereby recognize the many contributions Sue Portuese has made to our community and join with her family, friends, and co-workers in recognizing and thanking her for her service to Montclair. We wish her a happy retirement in which she can spend time with family and friends and further her many interests. And I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, big applause as you're seeing there from everyone. As I said it before, and you heard all of us, reading there. Just what a legacy you've left here for us, really making sure people have been safe, doing so much for this town, going above and beyond. I know, Tim and Brian on here, have leaned on you so much in terms of what you had to do, and they speak so highly of you all the time. And, we're all going to miss you for sure. As you noted, there's much to be done still and fun to be had, which you want to get out there doing. But we thank you for your time with us. Really appreciate you. And it truly is, when we read it there, on behalf of all of Montclair is appreciative of all your work. Thank you very much.
Big shoes to fill.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for this. Our staff has been terrific, and the support of the mayor, council, and town manager. You can't do anything without the support. It's been such an honor and a privilege to serve the residents of Montclair, and to be able to be in the position I'm in the health department, where the staff works so hard to get things done. And it's been incredible, and I really thank you so much. And Peggy and Keith for writing this. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks so much.
great.
Yeah, definitely, no problem.
Well, thank you again. We appreciate
Take
it.
care.
Okay, best wishes.
Thank you.
Before you go, baby.
Okay.
Thank you,
Keep
Sue.
in touch.
Okay.
Keep in touch.
Thank
I
you.
will.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Moving along, we are going to open up the meeting for public comment in an effort to minimize exposure to COVID-19 and to maintain social distancing practices. This June 22nd, 2021 council meeting and further meetings until the pandemic is over will only be available to the public remotely. Those who wish to participate now during public comment should dial into 408-418-9388. When asked to enter an access code, please enter 173-874-4449, then press pound. When asked to enter an attendee number, simply press pound. When asked, please state your name and press pound. The administrator will say when it's the caller's turn to speak, and the caller will then hear two beeps. At that time, the caller will have an opportunity to make his or her comments. Mr. Stafford, I turn it over to you to manage public comment.
Mayor, we have one addition this evening. To dial in for public comment, as you noted, please dial 408-418-9388. After being asked for the access code, please enter 173-874-4449 and then pound. And then when asked for the attendee number, which is unusual tonight, we're suffering from a technical difficulty, please enter 469-499-00 and then pound. So again, for the attendee number, 469-499-00 and then pound.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stafford. So I appreciate you, saying that clearly, and I'm sure we're going to get individuals who are jumping on to speak for that. You just reiterated it. We did adopt it with flexibility, so I'm going to jump around just a little bit, give everybody a chance to jump on as you just read those instructions a couple times there, Mr. Stafford. So with that, I'm going to move to our, and we're going to come back to public comment, but I'm going to move to our pending ordinances for the second reading. So I know we've looked through some of these pieces already. Again, the first ordinance O-21-15 ordinance concerning unisex restrooms. I'm going to open the public hearing without objection. Is there anyone who objects? Seeing no objection, is there anyone in the dialing queue who wishes to be heard in relation to the proposed ordinance?
Well, Mayor, it would be impossible. The queue is now populating, but it would be impossible for me to know who's calling for public comment and who's calling for this ordinance. So would you like to
I'm not seeing anyone. Are you getting?
They're in a different place because of the technical glitch. So I see them. I have probably 24 now. I would ask that you, for efficiency, maybe go back to public comment, and if somebody wants to comment on an ordinance pending, they can.
Excellent. All right. Yeah, because I don't see it on mine here. So, okay, perfect.
Correct.
Mr. Stafford, go ahead. I'm going to switch it back to public comment, and I'll let you manage that then. Again, you have the better access and seeing what's there. So go ahead.
So, Mayor, just to keep a clean record, we're suspending the public hearing temporarily and going back to the public comment portion of the meeting, and then we'll come back to the public hearing after that. Correct?
Thank you, Mr. Karasik. Yes, we'll suspend that. Thank you.
So first up, I'm sorry, did somebody have something to say? First up for public comment, caller with the number starting 718-791. It is your turn to speak. 718-791, please state your name for the record and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Caller 718-791.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, sir. Yes, please go ahead. State your name for the record, please, and keep your comments under 3 minutes.
It's weird. The reason I'm not talking is I'm still getting a message from WebEx or whoever's doing this to unmute myself. So a lot of technical glitches. My name is John Sherman, longtime resident of the 3rd Ward. I'm a member of Montclair Beyond Policing, just checking in. We've had our town hall since the last council meeting on June 6th. That was a great chance to get together with a bunch of folks locally and discuss ways that we can try to move forward with actually making some changes in our local government that reflect what a lot of people, I think, were hoping would happen after the George Floyd protests a year ago. Anyway, we talked with a bunch of people, Restorative Justice Montclair, Montclair Mutual Aid, local climate activists, and there's a lot of people who feel like some actual changes should be made, and they'd like to see a movement away from policing and a movement towards a non-police crisis response program, which we have created a petition for, and a lot of people have signed. I think really my two items for tonight are really just want to gauge council interest. Any individual members, I'd love to hear you chime in. Are we interested in actually improving the transparency of the budget in the next cycle? And are we interested in a non-police crisis response program? Thank you very much.
Next up would be caller with the number starting 973747. It is your turn to comment. 973747. Please state your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council. This is William Scott, co-chair of the Montclair Housing Commission and chair of the NAACP Housing Committee, and member of the Montclair Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and also a 71-year resident of the Township of Montclair. I'd like to get a status on the litigation of the Property Owners Association of Montclair. What is the, where are we in the appeal process? Has Mr. Krozak filed the appropriate paperwork for the appeal process?
Okay.
And has he had the opportunity to?
I'm in.
Can you hear me?
I heard Mr. Scott, Mayor, if you
We can hear you,
like.
Mr. Scott. You can continue. I think somebody else was just speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, it kind of got chopped off there. And I'd like to know the if Mr. Krozak has received the brief from the Property Owners Association attorney, filing in the appropriate time frame.
Mayor, would you like me to answer that?
Please, Mr. Krasick, if you can.
Mr. Scott, yes, the brief of the property owners was filed actually yesterday afternoon, was uploaded to the website, and it's, I don't know, they submitted about a 35-page brief. Not that quantity is that important, but just for your information, we can provide you with it, or you can look at, I know you guys are able to go on the website, but either way, just please contact me if you'd like it. Our response to that, or our reply really, is due by July 1st. At that point, the court, the property owners have asked for oral argument, so assuming the court grants that request, there will be an argument sometime. There's no way to tell when the court's going to act on it, though this appeal is under an expedited time frame. So I would expect that sometime relatively soon, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, I can't say, there will be an argument and we will get a decision sometime thereafter from the appellate division. But we have filed everything we're supposed to in a timely way, and so has the other party.
Caller with the number starting 973699. It is your turn to comment. 973699. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. 973-699. Caller with the number starting 908-507. It is your turn to comment. 908-507. Please, for the record, state your name and keep your comments under 3 minutes. Mayor, I sense that there is a technical. Not hello.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sir?
Okay, Robert Crook, founder of Glenfield Park Conservancy.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to thank the council, the mayor, and particularly Councilman Yacobelis for his efforts relating to the LGBTQ community and the positive affirmation of the LGBTQ community in Montclair. And
Sir, you would do us a service if you would turn off your listening device so as to avoid the delay.
okay, so really, there's been a lot of discussion related to the enactment of laws related to unisex bathrooms. I was a small business owner of a number of retail stores throughout New Jersey, including Montclair, over the past 25 years. And I personally, and my customers that I had over those 25 years, really never had an issue with anyone using a bathroom. And I really think that, I've heard a lot of feedback in the community that they're opposed to this law, and I just think in today's world it just makes no sense. And I just hope that the council and the mayor look at the proposed legislation and vote affirming unisex bathrooms for all people, including the transgender community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 201-921. 201-921. It is your turn to comment. Please, for the record, state your name and keep your comments under 3 minutes. 201-921.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. Please mute your listening device so that you do not suffer the delay. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Oh, excellent. The whole *6 thing. Okay, it does mute and unmute successively. All right, this is Ahava. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Everyone listening in the public, I'm happy to be able to call in tonight, even with the technical thing of adding the additional numbers. I have a timer, and I just may need my 5 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Proud to be on for our community. I am the president of the tenants organization of Montclair. If you do not hear all of us on the call tonight, it would only be due to the technical difficulty, and I know several are watching from home on their devices, and some people are in their cars. I wanted to thank you all for the rent freeze ordinance extension that's expected because it's on the agenda for finalization tonight. I know that's agenda number 8. Maybe it'll move up, but that's the number that we have from the document. Thanking you especially while we are in litigation still for the rent control ordinance, which for the public, I'd like to continue to make clear that they are two separate entities. We're looking forward to our next mile marker with the sincere hope of a ruling in our favor for implementation. As I've stated before, if we are presented with a referendum, we expect a huge voter turnout in favor of rent control. There's no doubt about that in any of our hearts and minds with regards to our rent control ordinance, again, if it were to go to a referendum, which we don't know right now. And we're definitely out continuing to organize, continuing to grow, and we have still that loads of support for our ordinance. I'm happy to say we have more support coming in from some of our political public figures in New Jersey, many of whom are from Montclair, born and raised. And I'd like to say still, we welcome all new to Montclair and would love to see you all stay here and build community with us. We've talked to too many residents who come in, and then when they found out about the rent control and the skyrocketing rents and issues, having not known about it before moving to Montclair, had a serious concern about what would happen in the next year. And we have to assure everyone that we're doing our best to make sure that implementation does happen so that someone who moves in doesn't have to worry about moving the next year because of an unconscionable rent increase. We want to see our new Montclairians come in and be able to stay here, live here, raise their families here, whatever reason they're brought to Montclair. We are a special place. We know that. It is beyond me how at this juncture, though, it's kind of beyond me at this juncture, how any landlords or property owners or building owners do not know about the rent freeze. I'm still having calls. Hello?
Yes, ma'am, we can still hear you.
Someone else needs to mute themselves. So I'm still getting calls from tenant, residents, neighbors who are receiving, citizens of Montclair, who have been getting leases and receiving notices of increase of rent during a rent freeze ordinance that is a municipal.
Ms. Felicidad, are you still there?
Yes, it just asked me to unmute myself again. So I just want to make sure you got the part about the fact that there are still a lot of calls coming in and meetings happening because there are residents in Montclair who are tenants who are still receiving leases, notices of increase of rent. And these are people who are not exempt. We know who the exemptions are. We post the exemptions on our courtesy posting that we put on Montclair Patch and make it clear to everyone who calls into us or emails us, check to make sure you're not exempt. And we have people who are not exempt. They're not in a hotel. They're not in subsidized housing. They're not in an owner-occupied one additional unit house. They're getting leases for rent increases illegally against the law during the freeze. So we're taking care of as many of them as possible to refer them to resources. And for those that we've been given the permission to direct them to our township attorney, we know what guidelines we have with that. We've done that as well. So we want to make sure that we do address this for them because it should not be happening. Thankfully, neighbors are talking to neighbors and friends are talking to friends and family. But the calls have not stopped. The emails have not stopped. They've actually increased. So I'd like to thank you again for the rent freeze extension that's going through for September 30 of 2021. We do still need this, and we do seriously need resources in our township that are very, very clear, helpful, easy to get to for our tenants who need to have negotiations and mediation with their landlords. Thank you very much. Have a good night. We're Tenants Organization Montclair at gmail.com and at Tomb Advocacy on Facebook.
Thank you. Next would be caller with the number starting 862-283. It is your turn to comment. 862-283. Please unmute yourself, state your name for the public record, and keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Bill Barron, resident of Montclair, live on Gordonshurst Avenue, and I'm the chairperson of the local Sierra Club group. And I wanted to thank the council for putting up resolution 136 regarding the forestry bills that have been making their way through the state legislature. These bills have been opposed by the League of Municipalities, and many other municipalities have passed resolutions opposing them. So I'm glad to see that there's interest in Montclair to continue that. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I think I sent supporting information to every member of the council. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next would be caller with the number starting 973424. It is your turn to comment. 973424, please unmute yourself by hitting *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. This is Deirdre Malloy, and I am going to try my best to keep my comments under 3 minutes, but I may go over by about 30 seconds. First and foremost, good evening, Mayor Spiller, council members, and staff. And I want to say a happy belated Father's Day to everyone who is a dad. I am the co-chair of the Montclair Housing Commission, chair of the Landlord Tenant Advisory Committee, and a longtime housing advocate. Thank you for these few minutes to speak. First, my comment is going to be about the Landlord Tenant Housing Advisory Committee. I await, as requested, direction from the legal department and the governing body as the committee's future roles and activities. The committee is a critical resource and continues to receive calls and emails that we respond to and provide solutions for landlords and tenants weekly. There are serious ongoing violations, as Ms. Felicidad noted. However, we stand by to assist the governing body with advice and support as it intends to move toward rent control, a rent board, and staffing. But while this committee is on a hiatus, we still continue to provide significant significant support to our community. I also want to note that on July 22nd, I will co-host an event that was planned 8 months ago with the Superior Court Landlord Tenant Essex Vicinage. This is a landlord tenant information forum on current evictions, post-pandemic, and court proceedings with a review of landlord tenants' rights. If any landlord or tenant or anyone from the public would like to attend, email us at landlordtenanthousingcommittee@gmail.com. That's landlordtenanthousingcommittee@gmail.com, and the invitation link from the Superior Court will be sent to you. Today, on another and very happy note, we saw the independent advocacy, legislative work, strategy, and negotiations over the past few months done by me, Mr. Scott, NAACP Housing Committee, Mitch Kahn, Connie Pascal, Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey, New Jersey Citizen Action, Fair Share Housing, Ironbound Community Corp., and many others. Literally, after all of this hard work, saw S3691 and A5685 earmark over $500 million affirmatively moved both in the Senate and the Assembly, and later unanimous passage in the Assembly Budget Committee this afternoon. So those bills are specific to prevent eviction, pay outstanding rent, help small and other landlords with rents, and certain homeowners preventing foreclosures. Go to njleg.state.nj.us to review. Those bills are very significant.
Malloy, that sound was your 3 minutes. Please conclude your comments.
Those bills are very significant, and I recommend everyone go ahead and review them. Now, in closing, those of us who are privileged to be on committees and commissions work hard and share with others in equal efforts. We move strategically, splitting up the work, and if you would like to become a committee member or a commission member, please fill out a volunteer information form and submit it to the clerk's office. We welcome and could use your help. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Next would be caller with the number starting 973-820. 973-820. It is your turn to comment. Please unmute yourself by hitting *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Good evening. It's Tony Martin. I am the Vice President of the Tenants Organization of Montclair. Wow, we have such an impressive array of housing and tenant advocates in this community. And I must say then that I continue to be astonished at how we seem to be stuck on getting the information out in so many cases. Ahava and I were at the fabulous Juneteenth celebration at Glenville Park last Saturday, which was truly remarkable thing in this community. I hope that I saw David Cummings there. I hope that others will report that they experienced this wonderful evening too. But what I want to say about that is, so we signed up many new tenant members. We spoke to many people in this community who had no idea that there is a rent freeze. And they will have no idea that it is being extended unless I ask you directly now, please send out a townwide alert when you pass this extension. If you would, I would love it if you would get your public relations specialist to spread the word on every media that you have available. Thank you so much. Happy Father's Day and happy Juneteenth.
Thank you. Next caller with the number starting 917-922. 917-922. It is your turn to comment. Please, for the record, state your name. Keep your comments under 3 minutes and unmute yourself by hitting *6.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Carol. I wanted to weigh in on this continued effort locally to defund the police. Anyone who has watched this movement nationwide could see that this really would not end well. And we're beginning to see that now. I mean, you could dress it up any way you want by saying reimagining it or however, but once criminals can see that there are no repercussions for criminal behavior, they will become emboldened, which inevitably leads to a rise in crime. And that is exactly what is happening now with this experiment. As we see, major cities are now refunding the police because crime is getting out of hand. We see that Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York announced that he will invest $92 million in a new police precinct after he slashed $1 billion of the NYPD's budget this last summer. And this is also happening in Oakland, Baltimore, Minneapolis, and Los Angeles. They're reinstating tens of millions of dollars to increase their police department's budget after a huge surge in crime, including homicide. Now, here's an interesting development. If you follow Brandon Tatum, he's a former Arizona police officer who also happens to be an African-American. Therefore, he has a unique perspective on this effort to defund the police movement and BLM. He believes there is a far more nefarious reason for wanting to defund the police, to have a federal takeover of law enforcement. He stated, "I believe it's an agenda to completely destroy and dismantle local police departments so that the government can have control of law enforcement in this country and push a nationwide agenda." He believes that by federalizing law enforcement, some unconstitutional restrictions, such as, for example, gun control or mandating vaccines, would be more easily enforced by a central police agency. Now, that might sound a little, crazy, but think about it. I mean, it's something to really think about. And we need to really look at these agendas behind all of this. And what makes us think that this experiment of defunding the police is going to work here? I mean, what we really need to do is apologize sincerely to the police officers for the incredible lack of respect we are showing to a group that we formerly considered heroes, which is what they still are. So please, let us stop the madness with this. Thank you very much.
Can you say your name again, please?
It's Carol.
Carol.
And honestly, I'm not telling my last name because I know that.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 201264. It is your turn to comment. 201264. Please unmute yourself by hitting *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes. 201264.
Hi, my name is Prabita Saha. I'm a member of Montclair Beyond Policing and apparently an operative for the federal government. Today I wanted to speak a little about the Montclair skate park. I live down the street from it, and given some calls or some stories about how it was vandalized and how that is a reason why it shouldn't exist where it is, I went down there this weekend to take part in a Montclair Makes Music event there, and it was wonderful. Every time I go there, I really enjoy the camaraderie between the skateboarders and people of all ages, people of all backgrounds. Not as a skateboarder myself, I just enjoy, the community there. And I really want to stress that the skate park is very grassroots run. It's not getting a lot of the support it needs from the local township. And we should really be looking at ways to help create a permanent place for the skate park and all the people it's elevated. So I hope to see that, and I hope to support that going forward. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973-699. 973-699. It is your turn to comment. Please unmute yourself by hitting *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes. 973-699. 973-699. Okay. Caller with the number starting 973-747. 973-747. Please unmute yourself by dialing *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Yes, this is William Scott. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mr. Scott.
Yes, I was kind of cut off the last time because I didn't get a chance to finish my comment. I did have a comment in regards to the rent increase ordinance that we have. And I did attend the tenants organization support at the June 18th meeting this past Saturday. And yes, several residents were questioning about the freeze and were not aware of the freeze. And I think when we have a leaf blower ordinance that has more teeth in it than our rent freeze ordinance. I think maybe that's why the landlords are not heeding the word. I'd like to know if there's a possibility to amend the rent freeze increase ordinance tonight to make it at least as strong as the leaf blower ordinance that we have on the town record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Let's try caller with the number 973-699. It is your turn to comment. 973-699. Please unmute yourself by hitting *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes. 973-699. Are you there? Okay. We're going to move on to a second caller with the number starting 973-747. 973-747. Please hit *6 to unmute yourself. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Can you hear me? My name is Renee.
We can hear you, sir.
Can you hear? Oh, delicious. Let me first of all thank the members of the council. Good evening to all of you and other members of the town government. Once again, I wish to express my grave concern over Mayor Spieler serving as both mayor and in September president of the New Jersey Education Association. A serious conflict of interest therefore exists, and Mr. Spieler has been significantly well-paid, six-figure salary executive with the NJEA for at least the last 8 years. And as president, he will likely be compensated for about $500,000 annually. That's big bucks. However, as mayor, Mr. Spieler is supposed to be without bias and unfettered by conflicting interests. Ideally, he is supposed to be completely open to all sides of issues facing Montclair, whether it's education, schools, police, roads, etc. Considering the appreciable and compelling compensation he'll be getting from NJEA, I don't think it's possible for him to be open and unbiased. Last time I suggested that for the good of the town, the mayor resign. This time tonight, I respectfully am requesting that Mr. Spieler defend his position in this regard. Tell us tonight, after all the calls have been heard, why he thinks there is no conflict of interest and how he can competently serve both masters. Let's hear from you tonight, Mr. Mayor. On another note, a previous caller talked about the subject of defunding the police. I submit that we must support our Montclair police and law enforcement in general. This council should vigorously resist any effort to defund our police. This crazy idea of defunding those who protect, defend, and serve is again simply dumb, stupid, ignorant, asinine. And statistics show that the vast numbers of police are decent, caring professionals who work hard in a dangerous job. Of course, there are bad apples, to use the common vernacular, and they must be accountable for their dishonorable actions and behavior. But there are bad apples, if you will, in every profession. Bad lawyers, bad doctors, bad teachers, bad clergy, bad politicians. All must be ultimately accountable. I don't know whether this council has noted the spike in crime across this country. It's really rampant. It's really out of control. And it's interesting that this defund the police movement started after the tragic, senseless killing of George Floyd.
Sir, that noise was your 3 minutes expiring. Please conclude your comments.
Okay. I'm going to just quote one statistic that no one ever seems to mention. We talk about George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, and et cetera, other names, and we should. But what about the 3,000 African Americans who've been slain in Chicago in the last 5 years. 3,000. Would anybody care to mention any of their names? I'll conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be caller with the number starting 646-220. It is your turn to comment. 646-220. Please unmute yourself by dialing *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes. 646-220. Six four six 220. I heard you for a second there. Do you wish to comment? Okay, moving on then. Caller with the number starting 917545. 917545. It is your turn to comment. Please unmute yourself by hitting *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes. 917545.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is John Van Wagner calling. I'm calling in response to the resolution proposed by Councilors Price Abrams, Russo, and Iacobellis, which calls for Montclair support for Bill number A85207 S3361, currently under review in the state legislature. This bill prohibits state and local agencies from entering into, reviewing, or extending contracts for operating detention facilities for undocumented immigrants within the state. I ask, by what right do these councilors speak for the township in this matter in calling for impediments to the functioning of the law with regard to illegal immigration in the state of New Jersey? Does this council not acknowledge the crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border brought on by the reckless policies of the current administration, which have done so much to undermine the lives and security not only of American citizens, but also of the people attempting to cross the border? As a citizen of Montclair, I reject absolutely any measure by which this town endorses and condones policies that have led to such immeasurable human suffering and which, if continued, promise nothing but continued violence and tragedy. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973722. It is your turn to comment. 973722. Please unmute yourself by hitting *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Gerard from Montclair. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for taking my call. Just a couple comments. One is regarding the LGBTQ, the bathroom issue. It seems very ambiguous. I'd like some clarification. It's really been very unclear the way this ordinance has been delivered. I'd really like some clarification on that. It just seems to me it's been totally not transparent, not really the way the government should be. Also, I want to make a quick, just voice my opinion on rent control. I think rent control, if you look at the history of rent control, you know, it becomes very cruel to the tenants. It's very unfair to the landlords, and it works out very poorly in the long run for the community. You know, the initial reaction to people is people feel that rent control is a result of dirty, greedy landlords. But if you really look at the facts and how it plays out, that's really not the facts. And to back that up, if you look at where rent control really doesn't work, it's devastated California. There are more homeless people in California than any other state. Has not worked out well in New York. If you look in Seattle, there's homeless people all over the place, and it's really an issue of rent control. I know something needs to be done, but rent control is not the answer. And my final comment is I just heard a previous caller not too long ago brought up some very important points about the mayor, and I will wait to hear a response from him so he could defend himself on that issue. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next would be caller start with the number starting 973-816. 973-816. It is your turn to comment. Please unmute yourself by hitting *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes. 973-816. 973-816, would you like to comment? Okay. Moving on.
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I hit the pound sign, not the star sign. Hello, this is Sarah Hetrick, Third Ward, resident, Montclair Beyond Policing. Where do I start? Okay, so I'd first off like to clarify the issue of abolition and defunding the police. This does not simply mean getting rid of the police and then leaving it at that. There are other systems of accountability that promote actual safety and actual harm reduction in our communities that comes with the idea and the movement of defunding the police and abolition. Another thing that I feel like I shouldn't have to say, but I do, is that correlation does not equal causation. You will not find any study linking the defunding of police to the recent uptick in violent crime. We've been affected by most sociologists recognize that we've been affected by a pandemic, and we've been undergoing some extremely odd conditions that are not, normal, really, because we've had a pandemic. This is also, you can cite the recent uptick in domestic violence, but that is almost directly attributable to being enclosed in a lockdown for an extensive period of time, and also failed lockdown measures, but that's a different story. We also at Montclair Beyond Policing want to fundamentally stand against the tokenism of different identities for political gains, because, well, I feel like I shouldn't have to ethically justify that. But yeah, tokenism isn't a good thing to do. In addition, engaging with conspiracies with no evidence is also not something that people should do. We also disavow that. The movement to defund the police is simply about listening to the voices of people who have been affected by police the most and hearing out how they, through extensive research, have come up with alternatives and better solutions that genuinely will promote accountability and harm reduction in our communities. We'd also like to assert that the issue of policing is systemic and that it is not necessarily swayed by individual actors. Well, that's that. And I think that is it. I'd like to say thank you guys, and hope you guys are all doing well and in good health. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be caller with the number starting 917-825. 917-825. It is your turn to comment. Please unmute yourself by hitting *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes. 917-825. Nine 917-825. Would you like to comment? So moving on. Caller with the number starting 646220. It is your turn to comment. 646220. It is your turn to comment. Please unmute yourself by dialing *6. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Please unmute yourself by dialing *6.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, but please do us the service of muting your listening device so that you avoid the delay.
Okay, did you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes?
Please do us the service of muting your listening device so that you avoid the delay.
Okay, can you hear me?
This is Tim, first time, last time. Love the call. I can hear you. Please do us the service and mute your listening device, and you will avoid the delay. I promise you it will be easier and better. Can you hear us, ma'am? Okay. I'm going to move on. Feel free to call back and we'll get you right back in the queue. Next would be caller 917-846. 917-846. Please unmute yourself by dialing *6. State your name for the record. Keep your comments under 3 minutes. And please, everyone, when you call, mute your listening device to avoid the delay.
Oh, hi. This is Scott.
Yes, sir.
Pollock, and yeah. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
Oh, good. How y'all doing? Good. Good to hear. Listen, I'm listening to this thing, and defunding the police is the thing that really kind of bothers me. Carol and several other people, I totally agree 100%. You got to respect the police. They're out there protecting us. We got to support law enforcement. And just think about it, guys. If a bad guy comes into my house, it's going to rob, rape, and steal. I want a cop and a gun, not a social worker. Thanks, and have a good night.
Okay. Next would be caller with the number starting 973-744. 973-744. Please unmute yourself by dialing *6. Mute your listening device to avoid the delay. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, great. Hi, everyone. This is Suzanne Atman, co-chair of the Montclair Environmental Commission. I just want to give a quick thank you on a few of your environmental protection actions that are on your agenda tonight. First, thank you, Mayor Spiller and Council, for considering a resolution to oppose the forestry bills that are moving through Trenton that would enable harmful logging and prescribe burns on preserved lands in New Jersey, and that would prevent municipal oversight of our local public reservations. Many environmental groups, including the Sierra Club, as Mr. Barron shared, and municipalities are coming out in opposition to these bills, and we're so glad that Montclair is among them and can be a leader on this. I also want to applaud Mr. Stafford and team and council for the purchase of the 3 hybrid police vehicles. Every step we take to reduce our carbon emissions is critical, and the township serves as a role model for Montclair's residents when it takes steps like these. So thank you so much, and we look forward to working with you this year on more initiatives to mitigate the impacts of climate change locally. I just also want to add, hearing 2 comments from 2 other commenters tonight, that having worked with the mayor on different projects for years, I and many others find him to be of the utmost integrity and compassion and a true public servant. So I wanted to make sure to say that tonight and have that on the record. So thank you. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next would be caller with the number starting 646-220. It is your turn to comment. 646-220. Please unmute yourself by dialing *6. Mute your listening device.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Can you hear me fine now? Okay, thank you. Sorry, something happened before. Yeah, good evening. My name is Lorraine. I'm a Montclair resident, and I'm calling in tonight about the unisex bathrooms. First, I'd like to say that I did not think it was good government on the last meeting to go ahead with the vote on June 1st without all council members being able to review the bill and several members asking to wait on a vote. I'm part of the community and I did not know anything about this proposed bill, and I'm not sure that the local community and businesses know anything about it either. I'd really like to see some community data to support these statements, and I'd like to further add that we did not hear from the community during the June 1st council meeting. We only heard from the Unitarian Universalist Association. They don't represent me, and they're very clearly politically motivated. I'd like to state that I am not for changes to the bathroom signage in local businesses and preschools, libraries, etc. And it begs the question, who does this benefit? I don't believe it's true that anyone, regardless of how they identify, has confusion on what bathroom they want to use, or that it causes them any harm. And I'd also like to state that 4% of New Jersey identify as LGBTQ and 2% nationwide. For this reason, I don't see a necessity to change the bathroom signage, and I don't see how it benefits the other 96 to 98% of the population. And as a woman, I prefer to have a designated woman's bathroom. Thank you. One more point I'd like to add is that I also believe that this is an undue burden on our local business, and I don't really feel that they've had a chance to weigh in. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be caller with the number starting 646713. It is your turn to comment. 646713, please unmute yourself by hitting *6. Mute your listening device so as to avoid the delay. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes.
How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Mark, and I am a resident of the 4th Ward. I live on Linden Avenue. There's been a lot of talk about a lot of stuff tonight, but a lot of it has been about defunding the police. So I want to start by quoting an article from the New York Times that says, efforts to solve police violence through liberal reforms like these have failed for nearly a century. So when the caller called in about the rise in crime, Biden is actually proposing to give over $300 million for the police in next fiscal year, which is double what Obama and Trump did. So we're not actually defunding the police as a country. So I just want to make sure that gets out there that we're not actually doing that. And then that other caller had the point that we've been only talking about defunding the police for a year, which just isn't true. We've been trying to defund the police ever since the police evolved from slave patrols back in the 1860s. So just want to correct those two things for the record. I also just want to say I really respect that the mayor was at a event for reparations on Saturday where he spoke about the need for reparations. I'm not sure if the town has ever passed an ordinance about reparations. I would love to see us do that and put on the record that we believe the reparations need to be given because they are owed. And I've talked about this a few different times, but the LGBTQ rights were talked about in Pride Month, the police brutality, reparations, even environmental justice, all of these things are just entirely connected to each other. You know, there was that caller recently about the police vehicles, low emissions. Our military actually releases more emissions, more pollution than 100 different countries. So really all of these things are tied together. And if we are going to be genuine about reparations, which again, I respect Mayor Spiller for talking about that, knowing that, you know, the police, they have their origins in slave patrol, those issues are tied up together. And if we're really serious about moving forward as a country, we have to be really serious about defunding the police and using the money for other more important things. And I'm going to end with a quote from a book. It's called We Do This Till We Free Us by Miriam Kaba, because a lot of people have been talking about abolition. So here's the quote. What is, so to speak, the object of abolition? Not so much the abolition of prisons, but the abolition of a society that could have prisons, that could have slavery, that could have the wage. And therefore abolition, not abolition as the elimination of anything, but abolition as the founding of a new society. And in my opinion, that society takes care of people, health care, housing, great schools. We really protect and really serve and meet people where they're at. That's really what we're talking about when we're talking about abolition. We're not just talking about getting rid of systems. We're talking about creating new systems that really take care of people. And that's what we're trying to do in Montclair, and that's what we're trying to do everywhere. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 415-418. It is your turn to comment. 415-418. Please unmute yourself by hitting *6. Mute your listening device to avoid the delay. State your name for the record and keep your comments under 3 minutes. 415-418. It is your turn.
Hi.
Hi.
Start. Okay, hi.
Bring it.
I did. Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you. Bring it.
I'm calling against rent control. I actually moved here to Montclair from San Francisco, and I've seen the effects of rent control and those effects being negative. Here in Montclair, the council passed rent control on the basis of requests from a few tenants without consulting property owners and single-family homeowners. The council and mayor have been approached numerous times with amendments that would make the ordinances fair for everyone in Montclair, but no progress has been made, especially with the mayor. Instead of negotiating, the mayor and the council have insisted on dragging out litigation that has now spent over a year in court. The mayor and town clerk repeatedly denied Montclair registered voters the right to a referendum by refusing, wrongfully, to certify the MPOA petition in an effort that was ruled arbitrary and capricious by the New Jersey Superior Court, thus certifying the MPOA petition, a decision that yet again the town appealed, but all indications point to the question of heading to the ballot. Recently, the mayor publicly stated that he supported a referendum where voters would decide on how school boards should be chosen. I have a question. Why can't voters be trusted to decide whether or not they want rent control in Montclair? Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, there is no one else in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Stafford. Appreciate that. Thank you for managing that. I know even with the technical difficulties there, it's a little bit of an audible that you figured out. So I appreciate you working through that. So thank you very much. Okay, we do have, and again, we suspended the action on the pending ordinances that we have. The first was Ordinance O-21-15, which is an ordinance concerning unisex restrooms. I'm going to take us back to that ordinance and again open the public hearing without objection for anyone who wishes to speak on this ordinance. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, is there anyone in the queue, Mr. Stafford, who wishes to be heard in relation to the proposed ordinance?
There is no one in the queue, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stafford. Also, without objection, I'm going to close the hearing. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the hearing is closed. Any council comments or questions on the ordinance?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure, Councilwoman Schlager.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I had asked during the first reading that why houses of worship were exempt, and since then, I mean, I understand the single usage bathrooms, and this doesn't pertain to a bathroom that has stalls in it, but do we know if the library, houses of worship, the YMCA, the museum, the police department, the firehouse, do they have single-use bathrooms? Would this ordinance pertain to all of them if they have a single-use bathroom?
Ira, do you want to answer it, or I can?
Well, I mean, I can essentially, yeah, if the ordinance is passed, it would apply to municipal buildings. I don't know what the scenario is, except in town hall, which it does have a single stall bathroom, which is all gender. But any single stall bathroom, for instance, in the firehouse, would be denominated with the signage based upon this ordinance if it was adopted. As far as the other part of your question was why were houses of worship exempt, I think that was a choice when, and we basically worked this ordinance out from other ordinances which were provided, but I think the choice generally was that houses of worship should deal with any issues that might trigger religious issues. Let's leave to them and let them voluntarily address it. But maybe Peter, Councilman Yacobelis might have some more elaboration on the history of that.
And one other question. So if it's single-use laboratory, bathrooms, why can't it be bathrooms that have stalls? I don't.
Well, if it has more than one stall, well,
I mean, if somebody has to use a restroom is a restroom, whether it has a single toilet or it has 6. So I don't, 'cause I've had time to think about this since 3 weeks ago. So I don't understand why we would put rules on some and not on others. And there's, besides the houses of worship, there's the library, the YMCA, the art museum, and our police and fire house, which I guess is municipal buildings. And what about locker rooms? Do locker rooms don't pertain to any of this?
I'd ask, since you're asking really a policy question, I'd prefer the council person who's one of the sponsors. If you could, I don't want to put you on the spot, Counselor, but I thought you might have a better answer than I would.
Sure. So with regard to houses of worship, I mean, that is intentional to carve out that exemption, and that is to avoid litigation that I don't think, I don't want it to be, there to be a Supreme Court case, Montclair versus, and for, us to be the reason why a conservative Supreme Court strikes down laws potentially like this around the country. So that was a intentional exemption there. We are only contemplating in this law single-use restrooms only. There is no application to multi-use facilities at all. So not including locker rooms, not including multi-user restrooms of any kind. The law does not require the construction of single-user restrooms where there doesn't already exist one. So the expense for any type of business would be negligible in terms of signage updates. I do want to clarify, because this was a comment that a caller mentioned earlier as well. I have personally reached out to all of the identifiable businesses in Montclair through Google, essentially. 473 businesses, every single restaurant, store, office, law firm, salon, in town twice over the last several weeks, going over the specifics of what's included in the law and what is not included in the law to ensure there was no misinformation out there, and to also ensure clarity on what's in the law. I heard back from several. Most wrote back to give a thumbs up. 2 asked for clarifying questions around the types of signage. Other than that, there's been no direct pushback from any businesses, with maybe exception for one. I haven't verified that one person who reached out in opposition actually operates a brick and mortar location. So I think that's an important clarification too.
So the other, one of the callers that called in tonight thought that this put an undue burden on businesses. I see that. I didn't know you reached out to over 400 businesses, but so what's the hurry to do this? If we could have a little more time to speak to have some businesses weigh in with us. I mean, I believe you when you say you did all that, but is there a big, can this be tabled perhaps, or I don't know.
So we've had, as a committee, we have had dialogue with businesses. I've had dialogue with business leaders in each of the business districts going back now a couple of months. And we've invited that feedback, particularly around the timeline for implementation and on what ancillary nominal costs this may be for businesses. And we specifically wrote in this that there would be 6 months for implementation, so it isn't a rush, so that there is time for the businesses to, in some cases they don't need to do anything, because if they have a unisex restroom sign, which many do, outside of their bathroom already, they don't need to do anything. It's where it's a gender specific sign that needs to be changed to a gender neutral unisex restroom, that it would be 20 days from tonight, if it were to pass tonight, plus an additional 6 months until they'd have to do that. And in that period of time, I would continue that outreach through our business district leaders and directly with businesses in the way I've been communicating with them electronically over the past few weeks to continue to support the community with any questions they have. And like I said, I've reached out, again, the number's 473 businesses twice to offer the opportunity to clarify anything, to answer questions that they have. So that is an ongoing and has been an ongoing dialogue with the business community to bring them along. At the same time, I feel very strongly that we do not legislate protection and civil rights for protected classes of individuals on the basis of feedback from those who are, being asked to accommodate a protected class. I feel pretty strongly about that. That's come up many times in history. In many cases, I don't think I have to tell anybody about the mandates to desegregate. I don't think I have to tell anybody about the mandates to make, accessibility requirements. And a lot of these arguments were arguments that were brought up then. It's a burden on businesses to change signage. It's a burden on businesses to, construct or deconstruct something. So I just don't think civil rights should have to wait any longer than they need to, and particularly for protecting a very, very vulnerable and highly targeted class of people in our town.
Okay. So if there's more than one toilet, this doesn't pertain to that, and it could still be a men's room and a women's room.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilman Cummings.
I think to one of the points that Councilor Schlager mentioned, and Peter, I'd love if you can do this, if you can share the responses with the council, that would eliminate her need for discussion, because it shows that we've had, or that there's been enough conversation about this with business owners. I think that's something that is very important. But as I said before, again, you've done a lot of work on this, but we haven't. And I don't think there's been enough discussion and really outward public input to this particular ordinance. I mean, I understand everything that you're concerned, but as I've said from the beginning, that's been a big concern for me. And I don't see the need to rush. Well, I'm not even going to say rush. I don't think something showing up on my packet on Friday and we discussing it and then moving it so quickly. And this also goes to the fact of the way we are currently having to govern, where we can't meet and really talk. And I think this is a perfect example of some of the things that, I find that we push through things without fully vetting it. And then a response comes back, as one caller, I think it was Mr. Scott, mentioned about the leaf blowers, where now all of a sudden people are complaining that we're not able to enforce something. And not that this would be an issue. And then to your point about, I think Montclair has shown that it's pretty progressive and accepting. So I sort of push back on having to do something to protect the class that I think feels very comfortable here. And I think the last week, all of the out stuff that you did is an example of that. But at the bottom line for me, my concern again is council is really not talking about this enough amongst ourselves, because it showed up and all of a sudden we were voting. And B, really not having a really robust public discussion. So I think you kind of know where I am on this, but I wanted to follow up after hearing what Councilor Schlager was talking about.
Councilwoman Price Abrams.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to my colleagues for engaging in this discussion tonight. I guess I'll just maybe start with a response to Councilor Cummings just now. There are so many issues that in our sort of form of how we do governance, we break into committees. So there's been a wealth of discussion among the Municipal Services Committee on these issues, and we did, of course, bring it up 3 weeks ago at the last council meeting. So, you know, to yourself and perhaps Councilor Schlager, in terms of there not being enough time to consider, I've just heard what Councilor Iacobello shared in terms of his own outreach. But so part is there are many issues that I haven't had as much time for full discussion and hearing the details of what a given committee has worked on. I think that happens very routinely in our style of governance. But I also, I'm finding myself just as if we all don't have the same set of facts, because I think it's a very modest request that would help honor, as described, a civil rights issue for some of the constituency in this community by having where there is a single-use bathroom that it have a label on it that calls it something neutral, whether it's unisex or, again, gender neutral, whatever the terminology is, so that if as a woman, frankly, that could benefit me, because so often there's a line waiting for a women's bathroom. In this case, women would have options to use bathroom A or bathroom B, assuming there's two in that given location. There are places that only have one, and that would have to be a unisex bathroom. So it's common enough. So I guess I'm not understanding why would we slow this down. I respect really the point that was just raised, that if it's a civil rights matter, then we're going to educate people. We're going to hear their concerns, but what's being asked of business is a very modest change a sign, and there's a long period with which to do that. So I just, my own feeling is that it's fairly simple. I don't think it's a burden. I think it might be liberating for certain populations of people, and I don't see why we wouldn't pass this tonight. And so I would encourage others to ask their questions, but I hope that you will come around and help support it. Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Okay, and I'll just also speak to it. I do think in this regard, it speaks specifically to bathrooms that are already single use bathrooms. Allowing that those bathrooms can be used by anyone who goes in the bathroom and locks the door, I think is really not that big a burden and a lift there. And certainly on the flip side of that, for the values that speak to of our community as a very welcoming, as a very safe community, I do think this is pretty straightforward in terms of support. So I'll be supportive of this ordinance moving forward. And with that, Madam Clerk, I'll ask you to call the roll.
I need a movement and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Cummings?
No. No.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock?
No.
Councilor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
No.
Councilor Iacobello?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Thank you. Next is Ordinance O-21-16, which is an ordinance concerning non-discrimination by township contractors against their employees, township employees, or applicants for employment. I'm going to open the public hearing without objection. Is there anyone in the dial-in queue, Mr. Stafford, who wishes to be heard on this ordinance?
Mayor, there is not.
Okay, thank you very much. Without objection, I'm going to close the hearing. Seeing no objection, open it up to council questions and comments. Seeing no questions and comments, I so move.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilor Cummings?
Sorry about that. Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock?
Yes.
Councilor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Iacobello?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Next, excuse me. Next, as we move on, we have a consent agenda. All these items will be moved in block. Items 1 through 16, I so move. Is there anyone who likes any held out?
Mayor,
Okay,
Mayor, Mr. Mayor,
I hear you. Yep.
I just want to ask a question of our attorney and the manager on this. I thought anything that involved, I guess it's a certain level of finances, but anything that involved money had to be voted on with a separate or roll call. Am I right about that? Or?
We do this every time, Councilman, and it is done by a roll call vote.
Okay, so we don't need to pull anything out. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
You bet.
I should know better, right?
No. I know you've been doing this too, but it's a long day for all of us at times. Councilwoman Price Abrams?
Yeah, Mayor, if we could pull out, I think it may only apply to item number 4, which has to do with the plenary retail consumption liquor license of the MC Hotel. I have.
Counselor, we don't have to pull it out. If you need to recuse yourself on that one, you can just state that you're not voting on number 4, and you're voting on all the others. So we don't have to pull it out and vote on it separately. You make that statement.
Thank you, Mr. Karasik. So, Mayor, please proceed.
Okay. I assume that I got it. Noted that Councilwoman Price Abrams is doing that. Seeing no one else looking to, okay, Councilman Yacovelis?
Just a question on item 1. We don't need to pull it out. What are the deliverables in the grant agreement that are mentioned in the memo, Mr. Stafford?
For each of the 4 towns, Montclair, Verona, Cedar Grove, and Nutley, the completion and/or updating of each applicable community health assessment as put forth by the CDC, as well as the completion of a directory of health-related services to be provided.
Okay, thank you. That was all I had, Mayor.
Okay, Councilman, thank you. Anyone wish to pull any out? Okay, seeing none, I so move items 1 through 16.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Counselor Cummings,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Harlock,
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams,
Yes, except as noted with the one abstention.
Counselor Russo,
Yes.
Counselor Schlager,
Yes.
Counselor Yacovelis.
Yes, but I actually do have a question about item 15 that I missed when I was skimming my notes. I want what's appropriate in terms of protocol in the moment.
Well, we are in the middle of a vote on it, and it's already got enough to pass. But that said, there's nothing wrong with you asking a question. That technically it's probably gone through already, but ask your question.
So my question is just what the plan is in terms of the $236,000 reimbursement, because we obviously passed the budget without including that as revenue. So I'd like to understand what we're thinking about, how we're thinking about that $236,408 in terms of what it will be spent on. Does it go to the general fund? It'll be spent for various purposes. What's sort of the thinking there?
I don't believe we know how the money will come in yet. I believe it's probably a spend and get reimbursed. And if that's the case, then we're going to be spending periodically in chunks. In other words, if you recall the authorization of the agreement for the purchase, we're going to pay a dollar certain and then a percentage until it's paid off. If that's the case, we'll just get the money back as we spend it. I dare say that the state's not going to cut us a check for $236,408 before we've actually spent $236,408.
But wasn't it an allocation in the budget? And so if we're getting reimbursement, isn't that a net positive? Isn't that net additional dollars for the township?
I think we reduced the number in the budget to what we're spending this year.
Okay. And this would reimburse that?
Well,
basically, I was going to say, since this is not, the budget was adopted prior to this money even becoming potentially available. So it can't be accounted for in this year's budget. It'll show up in next year's. we're accepting it as an item in revenue and appropriation, but an item of revenue, but it actually turns up, I believe, manager, correct, it turns up in the following year.
I'm not sure how they account that on the book. I'll have to put that question to Ms. Rao. But again, I believe it will probably, although we don't know yet from the state, as far as I know, how it's going to come in. I believe it will probably be spend and get reimbursed. And if that's the case, we've set forth in our budget what we're spending this year based upon what our agreement is with the vendor. And we would submit that to the state for reimbursement. And then the chief financial officer and the controller will account for it appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And yes.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Spiller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, Resolution R-21-133 is a resolution authorizing the acquisition of three 2021 Ford Police Interceptor utility hybrid vehicles. And I so move.
Second.
Questions, concerns, or comments? Is that Councilwoman Schlager? Were you saying? I don't know. Did I hear you say something?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. Thank you. No, sorry.
Councilwoman Price Abrams?
Yeah, I appreciated, there was a caller earlier who did note that the township did select 3 hybrid vehicles, and I also had taken note of that and wanted to appreciate that that would be a more just higher mileage and it just more efficient and hopefully will serve us well. But I appreciated that the effort was made to select vehicles that leverage modern technology that'll be better for the environment. Thank you. Another question.
Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Cummings?
Yeah. Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock?
Yeah.
Councilor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Yacobelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Next is Resolution R-21-134. This is a resolution awarding the contract for the purchase and delivery of waterworks materials for a period of 2 years commencing with the date of the award of the contract, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, concerns, or comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilor Cummings?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock?
Yes.
Councilor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Yacobelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Next is Resolution R-21-135. I know Councilman Yacobelis, you'd reached out and asked, so would you care to read it?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And as a comment, I'll note, I am somebody that personally experienced conversion therapy in the state of New Jersey. And I won't go into my story or speak to the harmful effect that had on me as a young person. And I know that this is symbolic in nature to affirm an existing state law, but it's still very meaningful to not just me, but to a lot of people like me, both in Montclair and everywhere who's paying attention to what's happening or cares what's happening in Montclair, as a sign of, in addition to what we did earlier in terms of the gender neutral restrooms, as a sign of really standing up and caring about the LGBTQ community and the special needs and protections that are warranted for a class that is frankly just targeted for hate and discrimination in so many different ways, this being one. So this is a resolution in support of the New Jersey legislation concerning the protection of minors from attempts to change sexual orientation. Whereas contemporary science recognizes that being lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender is part of the natural spectrum of human identity and is not a disease, disorder, or illness. And whereas conversion therapy has been rejected by every major medical and mental health organization, including the American Psychological Association, American Psychiatric Association, American Medical Association, American Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, American Counseling Association, American Psychoanalytic Association, American School Counselor Association, American School Health Association, National Association of Social Workers, and the Pan American Health Organization. And whereas conversion therapy leads to critical health risks, including anxiety, depression, decreased self-esteem, substance abuse, homelessness, and suicide. And whereas the township has a compelling interest in protecting the physical and psychological well-being of minors, including lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender youth, and in protecting its minors against exposure to serious harms caused by conversion therapy. And whereas minors are especially vulnerable to the harms associated with conversion therapy, and whereas on August 9th, 2013, the state of New Jersey has passed legislation, PL 2013, Chapter 150, concerning the protection of minors from attempts to change sexual orientation and supplementing Title 25 of the revised statutes. And whereas the township wishes to support and affirm said New Jersey state legislation. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Montclair that the township supports and affirms New Jersey legislation prohibiting anti-conversion therapy of minors, PL 2013, Chapter 150, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, concerns, or comments? Councilman Hurlock, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to state these resolutions, and we've been getting quite a few of them now with national and state issues. And I have the utmost respect for Councilman Jacobellis. He and I have met on more than one occasion, and we've spoken at length about a lot of these types of issues. We had for lack of a better word, we had an agreement, a general person's agreement, if you will, in the last council to limit these types of resolutions. And we did a pretty good job over the last 8 years. We've done quite a few with the new council in the last year. And I believe Councilwoman Schlager, when you served with Mayor Remsen, you actually, I think, had a resolution not to have these types of resolutions. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I have taken the position over the last 8+ years now of abstaining when these types of national state issues come up. And I don't get to the merits of the resolution. So before I get emails and telephone calls this week, I'm not even getting there. I just don't think these types of resolutions are appropriate at the council level. And it puts us in a heck of a position a lot of the times as council members, because it's almost like, we have the resolution that, all children should go to bed early and, get plenty of rest. And then I'm here abstaining because, how the heck could Hurlock be against this? What's wrong with him? Well, that's why I'm abstaining. I don't get into these types of issues or the merits of them. I just don't think they're appropriate for a council resolution. As a lawyer, I question actually the legality of some of this stuff only because there's preemption issues with state and federal law, which I won't get into here tonight. But so for that reason, and again, Mr. Jacobellis, I have the most respect for you, and you know that, and we've spoken about a lot of these issues. But I'm going to abstain going forward. I'm going back to my practice of abstaining from these types of resolutions, and I'll be doing the same thing for number 20 as well. But I do appreciate you bringing these issues to our attention, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Okay, any comments?
Yeah, I like to ask Ira, because similar to Bill or Deputy Mayor, we get in these things where we're putting things that we really can't enforce. And I understand it makes us look good, but I just want to know from Ira's standpoint, is this an area we as a council belong in? And what are I'm asking you your legal thought and opinion about this.
Well, you're asking largely a policy question. I mean, a resolution isn't an ordinance. If someone suggests an ordinance, which I think is preempted by state law, or something which isn't in the province of the municipal, government to adopt, I'll say so and do my best to make sure it doesn't reach the council. Although my advice is only just that advice. With respect to something like this, I mean, I appreciate Deputy Mayor's concern. I mean, it's a subject of state law of national interest. It's not necessarily a municipal issue, although I gather Councilman Yacobelis would say that this is a problem that happens in Montclair as well as anywhere else, and therefore it is a local issue. But from a legal perspective, there's nothing wrong with this resolution. As a policy, and I certainly wouldn't advise from a legal perspective that it not be adopted. I understand the policy issues is something else as to whether the council wants to address these types of issues or not, but you're the elected officials, you make that decision.
That's right.
Thank you, Ira.
I have a question.
To me? Okay.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. So if this is a state law, don't we follow the state laws and regulations? Why do we have to reaffirm it?
Well, I'm assuming that this is being done to highlight the council's support for this type of law. I mean, there's no reason, you don't have to reaffirm it, and it's not going to change the enforceability of the law to adopt this or not. I mean, it's basically a statement. That's why I feel, it's not that I'm uncomfortable, but that it isn't really a legal matter. It's a question of policy and whether the council wants to step in and make this statement or not.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Councilman Russo?
Yeah. I've been doing this for 21 years. We had numerous resolutions which were somewhat controversial. The first years I was on the council, Brian Scantlebury may remember, we didn't have a policy, but we tried to, deal with each thing as it came up. We tried to avoid partisanship, but often something came up that we wanted to get a statement that we would support. For example, a few years ago, I proposed a move the money resolution, which I think almost the entire council supported, except for one member of the council. We had changed it to be a little more moderate. What we said was that we wanted money to be spent on our town issues like infrastructure and schools and things that would help our municipal government, our municipality, but it would come from the national level, spending less on the military. So it was a move the money resolution that was proposed by Peace Action. And I was the proponent of it. And it was certainly something that dealt with a policy statement. That's all it was. It was very broad. It wasn't even a law. Some of the things we dealt with here are laws that have been proposed. For example, Nia Gill proposing a law dealing with ICE. Well, we can support it or not. She'd like us to support it. It's our state senator from Montclair. We're going to talk about it, I think, and decide whether we endorse it. The same thing goes for, say, the body cams. I've been angry that the state doesn't give us enough money. I've been told we are going to get enough money. It's going to be over the time of several years. So eventually we'll be able to pay for all this. But what if we wanted to propose that this is something that the state should fund? It's just like the unfunded mandates. We always argue, even nationally, that the idea, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, has never been fully funded since 1976. Under all parties, all presidents, they never gave us the money they promised, 40% funding. Well, I think we should make a statement about that as often as we can to get the Congress to give us the money they promised, which would reduce everybody's taxes in this town. Property taxes would actually be reduced if the federal government just gave us what they mandated that we do. Special ed mandate has never been funded more than 10 or 12%. These are not really partisan issues. These are general issues that we're concerned about. And I understand what Councilor Deputy Mayor is saying, and we did have sort of policies, but at times we break those, preferences for policies, and we step in and say something. This is, to me, something very important, the way people have been treated. And, I just think we should make a statement on some things, and, not to overload us with things, but there are national issues that impact our local community, especially funding, finances. Say it was like the Voting Rights Act issue. I'd want us to make a statement now, supporting the thing that they're fighting over right now as we speak in the Congress. I'd like to make a statement that we support that bill that the president has put up, that even Senator Manchin's going to support now, talking on, because it's terrible that they won't even debate it. And that seems to be very partisan, but what it really is that this is fundamental to our country. Certain things, human rights, civil rights, voting rights, women's rights, the rights of LGBTQ people. I just think some things we need to make a statement on, and that's what this is. So I agree with the idea of not overdoing it. I know we had some policies in the past, but we've often broken those general traditional policies to make statements when it's really important. I think this is one of the issues it's important to make a statement on. This is the time, just like Juneteenth is the time to do something about civil rights. And, the people who called in tonight about police, I'm not for defunding police, okay? I don't like the term, but I'm for funding things that will help the police so they don't get burdened with doing things that they're not supposed to be handling. They're handling everything. Everybody calls the police in the middle of the night. There's a domestic dispute. Yeah, you want a police officer with a gun there. You want somebody to protect you. But you really didn't need to waste their time and the expense of that on just a dispute maybe that can be settled by some kind of psychology expert, social worker, whatever. I've seen this many times, even in my own building, and the police are wasting their time and energy on things that they don't have to do. So I'm all for policing. I'm all for funding police, but I want to fund the human needs, the infrastructure needs of this country, which is what the fight right now, folks, is about in Washington as we speak. Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely. Any other council concerns, comments, questions? Okay. Seeing none, I will put this to a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? And I believe it passes.
Abstention, Mr. Mayor.
Abstain, sorry. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I know you want to make that point. Yes, abstentions?
Thank you.
Thank you for the Deputy Mayor. Next, moving on, we have resolution. Sorry, where am I here now? Thank you. All right, next resolution R-21-136, which is a resolution of the Township of Montclair opposing the New Jersey State Assembly and Senate Forestry Management Bills A-4843 and S-3549, A-4844 and S-3550, A-4845 and S-3548, and A-3086 and S-2021, and I so move. 2001, and I so move.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. I will give a comment on this that did go through just to all the council colleagues too. And I know many of you have seen this, but it did go through the Education Committee, also referred it to the Environmental Commission. You heard from some of the speakers tonight. The Environmental Commission also fully reviewed it. The biggest pieces of impact that I think are very relevant, not only does it have a negative financial impact on the township, it has an environmental negative impact. This would supersede municipal rights. So these bills, as they are being considered now, would take away our right as the township to decide how we are treating our forested areas. It would require logging, again, without our say in any way, and it would require us to pay for the plans to help that to occur, again, without any of our say. So not something that is distant from us. This has a direct impact on us, both financially and environmentally. We have a number of large green open spaces that are throughout the township that this would apply to. So certainly it has major impact. And again, the environmental groups in town have fully reviewed and support from a financial impact that makes sense, and also from a local control impact. And again, it went through the education subcommittee, and that's all the comment that I have on that. Any other questions, concerns, or comments? I saw Price Abrams, and then I saw Councilman Yacobelis. So I'll go in that order, and then others, whoever. Councilwoman Price Abrams.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to augment what you just said, and just to draw a distinction that the point that the deputy mayor made a moment ago. This one actually, I believe there is a very clear township interest, as you noted, both for the ability to control our own finances, but things that could be decided on our behalf without our input, as well as on the environmental side. So I just would want to draw a distinction between the points that were made earlier in a different matter. This one we have a real direct interest in, so I just wanted to draw that point. Thanks.
Councilman Yacobelis.
Somewhat similarly, I guess, my question is, and I'm in support of this, but this doesn't come with any power, right? This doesn't have any teeth to it. This is symbolic. Am I right in that?
Well, I would argue this. We're actually trying to influence our legislators to not pass something in this case, right? So we're trying to, they haven't taken an action on this yet. We are hoping that they don't, and we're hoping to influence them to not take that action with this resolution.
Right, and there's another one similar later in the agenda with regard to immigrant incarceration. So I just want to raise that, I hope we're consistent going forward with resolutions.
Well, I think to be clear, we'll be as consistent as there are 4 votes for, Councilman. Right? That's as consistent as we will be, sir. Right.
I think the councilman makes a good point, though. We should be consistent when it comes to so-called feel-good resolutions.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock.
I definitely will be consistent and have been consistent for quite some time. We are operating under a new council. We're all kind of learning to work with each other, if you will. I hope I certainly respect my colleagues' positions, and I do hope that my positions are also respected. These are nonpartisan issues for me, nor were they ever partisan issues for me. And actually, the previous resolution that was mentioned, I'm cursed with a very good memory, and I went and double checked myself in my emails. Actually, there were 3 abstentions on that particular resolution. So some of us have been very consistent for some time and will continue to be. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Okay, I'll do a voice vote on this. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstention, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. That one passes as well. Thank you.
I'm an abstention on this as well. And to the councilor's point, I did look back, and I should have been an abstention on the previous one, but I did not say anything, so I apologize. So Angelise, can you please put me down as an abstention to the previous one, please?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Councilman Cummings. Appreciate that. Next is Resolution R-21-137. It's a resolution authorizing person-to-person transfer of alcoholic beverage, a plenary retail consumption license from Lackawanna Sauce 2019 LLC to BDP Lackawanna Pop-Up LLC, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, concerns, or comments? Seeing none, doesn't any financial.
I'd like a roll call vote on
Because
these.
the liquor license, Mr. Krasik, do we need a roll call on this one?
Yeah, we should do a roll call vote on this and the next one as well, which is a place-to-place of the same, on the same license.
Okay. Without objection, I'll do the 2 of them together.
As long as there's no,
Okay.
All right. I'm not seeing an objection. Next is resolution, because they relate here. Resolution R-21-138, which is a resolution authorizing the place-to-place transfer of alcoholic beverage plenary retail consumption license. And I so move items 21 and 22.
Second.
Questions, concerns, comments? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Counselor Cummings,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock,
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams,
Yes.
Counselor Russo,
Yes.
Counselor Schlager,
Yes.
Counselor Jacobellis,
Yes.
Mayor Spiller.
Yes. Next is a discussion item. It's a discussion prohibiting bullying on all youth serving township service activities, programs, and facilities. Again, discussion listed.
So there's quite a lot to discuss here. I think, first of all, I would note that I sent through some edit requests. So I do think, we do need to update the draft of the law for circulation again. So, a couple things I would call out that are missing that need to be included as an implementation date. I believe we need either a working group or some sort of advisory body for a period of 90 days or so to come up with what the bullying prevention policy would be for the township itself. And that could be, up to obviously the manager in terms of staff representation, up to the council in terms of our liaison or representation, and then other professional representation just in terms of making sure there's somebody from the Board of Education, somebody from a nonprofit perspective, just to talk through what this policy would look like for the township. In addition to the township having a policy for youth-facing services and things like library and parks and camp and other programs, this would also require any third-party nonprofit that receives money from the township to also on their books have a policy against bullying and require training of their employees. So I think there's just a couple pieces that need to be added to this. So I know this is just a discussion agenda tonight. We're not items for the agenda tonight. We're not voting on this, but that's overall what this law would do. But I do think we need to add some elements to it, recirculate it, and either and continue to discuss it at the committee level, and then potentially bring it to an additional committee for discussion, or we can have, separate conversations or have a larger conversation at the next council meeting when we're looking at the updated language.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Russo.
Yeah, one of the things I really feel strongly about in this, and I think we need more time, as others have asked for other things, but I think this one needs more time. But we've been hearing for quite a long time from people about the need for something like this. And here's what I want to see, and it's in here: political affiliation. Many people have come to me from both parties, and I've tried to deal with everybody fairly, Republican, Democrat, Independent. If somebody is wearing a T-shirt that says something that is really offensive, that's one thing, or it's really, provocative politically, talking about. But if somebody's just trying to display their support for a candidate and just have a T-shirt on and somebody starts bullying them, that's really terrible. I mean, I have my John F. Kennedy sign here from 1960. When I used to go around as a kid, 12, 13 years old in Newark, there was some students in my school, and I was pretty short. I was the shortest one in the elementary school in Newark. They hated Kennedy because he was Catholic. They hated him. They would say, my father hates RCs. I thought they meant RC Cola because my father sold soda and sold RC Cola. I found out they just hated the Catholic Church, Roman Catholics. So they hated Kennedy. They used to bully me. I was too small to do much, but I got my satisfaction when Kennedy won. But that was an example for me 60 years ago when I was a kid. I see this today. People for the Republican Party has asked me, we need to put in something that doesn't allow children to be bullied because they have different views, more conservative views. I'm all for that, protecting people's right to speak up and display their support for something. As long as it's not, people putting Nazi symbols and Klan. I mean, that's something I'm opposed to. But if somebody's got a display of their candidate and it's a legitimate, candidate or something, I've been through it myself. I feel sorry for kids that get bullied because of political affiliation. So I support having that provision in there. And I hope people, understand that I'm trying to be fair about that. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. Councilwoman Price Abrams.
Yeah, a question perhaps for Mr. Karasik. I don't know if I always think about it on our ordinances, proposed ordinances, but in terms of implementation, because Councilor Yacobelis a moment ago talked about the formation of some kind of ad hoc group that would be represented, but in different capacities. The consideration of what's really needed to implement this, and it comes up other times. I'm not sure I've really thought to ask the question, but what's the implementation date of a piece of legislation that we enact? I mean, is it immediately effective if it doesn't say otherwise?
We can make it as effective whenever we want, as long as it's at least, 20 days after the passage, unless we do an emergency resolution. But we could say, for example, there's a proposal with the unisex that it really takes effect in 180 days.
Right.
We can establish an effective date for that. I mean, this subject is a very difficult subject for legislation at any level, and particularly on the local level. I think I'm not gonna. I don't think there's any doubt that bullying is a serious problem, and it's something which is wrong. But in any case, I think we do need time, because there's a lot of thought that has to go into what the municipality can do. And I'm not saying it can't do anything. I'm just saying that there's an extensive state law in the education laws regarding schools and bullying.
Right.
There's some state law in the criminal laws, but where are the gaps, and what can the municipality do, and what's our point? I'm not sure the answers. I know just by looking at this, in the time I spent just to get it in front of you, that it's a subject that really needs careful thought. It's one thing to have a task force, to educate people against bullying, but when you're actually passing a law that's going to criminalize something, or it's going to, put penalties on it, that's a whole different world, so to speak.
I would agree with you. If I could just finish, I was asking the question so I could just, so I believe.
I'm sorry I went on, but I felt like I had to say that.
I appreciate it. I think it was instructive, but maybe for the time that we may go back, as this is sort of aging, so to speak, we can consider some language about, how much time we might need to pull together some additional thinking in the realm that you described, so that we don't have ambiguity as to what someone, have you or have you not violated this? It has to have clarity on that. So I think perhaps we want a little bit of a phase-in period to make sure we get that.
Yeah, so what I was going to say, oh, sorry, let me just speak out of turn.
It's okay, I'm done.
The intention here, and I think we have to be very careful about this. The intention here is not at all to get into speech, right? What can be said, what can't be said. It's defining at a macro level what bullying is in terms of a definition of bullying, in terms of categories of bullying. But what this is really about is mandating that we as a township, in any of our youth-facing services outside of the school system, and any youth-facing services that are in receipt of dollars from the township, have on their books, in their policy, an anti-bullying policy. And I think more importantly, training requirements for staff that are interfacing with youth. So as I started off saying, this is complex, and it needs time to think through what that looks like. There are certainly, a host of third-party organizations that do this work pro bono. Mayor, you and I think maybe Councilwoman Price Abrams are copied on the note. I had an exchange about this. There are third-party organizations that do this work pro bono that I think we can leverage to help, if we were to move forward with this, help any organizations that receive dollars from the township in crafting policy. We could have the model policy ourselves as a township. And then in terms of the training as well, there are, again, third-party organizations that would come in and provide those training services pro bono as well as digital content and all sorts of other interesting ways to do the training as well. But this law is very specifically requiring that bullying policies, anti-bullying policies exist, and that training happens, and that's it. And I actually, in my notes back to you, Mr. Karasik, earlier today, I think again copying a couple of my colleagues, suggested that we actually strike the violation section. I don't actually want to see a violation section in terms of fines or anything like that. I think the intent is to bring the community along on a journey, is not to, it's complex. It's not been done in many places in the state of New Jersey or around the country, but it is something that has emerged in recent years as being, not just born out of the LGBT movement, but we've seen obviously with AAPI, we've seen with Black Lives Matter, we've seen with anti-Semitism, we've seen even with political bullying and white supremacy and all sorts of other issues. So it's complex, and I'd like to let the edits I suggested make its way into a new draft for a discussion either at our next meeting or one after.
Okay, well, I'll review the edits you sent. Thank you. I'm sorry. I was just going to say I will, because I do think that it was, as I saw the original proposal, I did see it more as an ordinance that was to penalize and to prevent the actual bullying, not to set up policies. And I think that sounds like a much more kind of municipally oriented direction to take. But of course, it'll be up to the council. But okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Schlager.
Thank you, Mayor. I would strongly suggest that before we move ahead with this, whether it be at the committee or however we decide to do this, that we clean up our own kitchen. I think this has to be in our employee handbook for municipal workers, the people that work for our township. I'd like to see the employee handbook at some point. I've never seen it. So I think it has to be in there. I also think in our own employee handbook, we have to practice what we preach here, that we have what will, besides a $2,000 fine, what about our own employees? If something like this happens, we employ a lot of lifeguards and camp counselors and interns. I mean, if somebody is accused of something like this, they should be fired immediately or reprimanded or written up. I don't know what the process is in our township. If there's a respect you're out, so to speak. So I would like to see what's in our employee handbook before we tell other people what to do here. Also, that goes for the police and fire department. I would assume it's in their employee handbooks. So I'd like to see those.
Any other questions, concerns, or comments?
Yeah, Mayor. As written, this really concerned me as someone who was on the board of education after Tyler Clementi's tragedy and putting in the HIV policy. And that, again, turned into one where it can go down a real dangerous road. And then I think about, again, as it's written, my two daughters who worked as counselors in the camp for us and had to deal with many children to where parents became involved, accusing kids of bullying their kid. And if this is something that we get down that road, it is going to open us up to a lot of issues, because those camps, from personal experience at the pool, as well as our day camp, to youth football, kids sometimes are kids, but it can lead to a lot of parent involvement that's unnecessary. So to Councilor Yacobelis's point, I think we definitely need to really pump the brakes here and look at it from a holistic standpoint of what are we really getting into? I mean, yes, I believe all of us are against bullying, but the nature of what these cases can come to is really, it can really be a red herring, just of a lot of innuendo, and many times factually just doesn't back up. But because what can be considered bullying today is very minuscule, and again, I'm speaking from personal experience here of kids being upset and then 2 weeks later being friends. So the youth aspect of this concerns me. And then also to put it on a lot of our nonprofits who work with kids, again, asking, and I get the pro bono support for them, but I'm just concerned that when you're talking about children and their behaviors, that this can escalate to something where we're consistently dealing with this. And I sat in on a lot of HIB hearings, and a lot of times it's, gets to the who said what, and, it's just not as clear to really, to the point said, clarity. I don't know if this is something that provides clarity. And so I'm just concerned about getting into this area.
Any other questions, concerns, comments?
I'll just say if anyone has a particular interest, I mean, I think what I'm hearing is really good things, which is that, this is something that we want to be thoughtful and careful and take our time with. And as I said earlier, it is something that is not widespreadly done, for lack of better terminology, at the municipal level in New Jersey. It is across the country in other states. But to me, it's a really worthwhile endeavor. And if anybody in particular wants to work with me on this, I'd love for that collaboration and support. I think we can do a really incredible thing here. I think just the notion of requiring anti-bullying policies for anybody dealing with our youth in town, including ourselves. And again, as I said earlier, the most important component, that there be training, is a really, really powerful thing. Without specifying exactly what that training is, just that there is training. That at some point we get to a place where we say, if you offer youth-facing services in this town, you need to be trained on how to deal with bullying in all of its forms. Especially if you're somebody who's had a career in youth-facing services, and maybe there's been some changes in terms of new protected classes, or there's been a spike, as there has been, in anti-Semitism and attacks on the AAPI community and things like that, where things need to be revisited and relooked at. I would say 5 or 6 years ago, we might have not been thinking we need to have this conversation in 2021. But as I'm sure you would all agree, the last few years has really brought out a lot of darkness in this country. And it's time to, I think, have a conversation about how we teach our kids and how we teach the teachers, meaning the people who are interacting with our kids, not just teachers, the ways to recognize and address bullying in all of its forms. But thank you.
Mayor.
Mr. Stafford?
One brief comment. To Councilor Schlager's point, and she was right on the money, while the thrust of the ordinance being discussed is bullying with regard to youth, the employees of the township and those using township services are entitled, without exception, to a workplace and an environment free of words, actions, or conduct that are discriminatory with regard to race, color, creed, national origin, nationality, age, ancestry, sex, familial status, including pregnancy, marital status, religion, domestic partnership status, affectional or sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, atypical heredity or cellular blood trait, genetic information, liability for military service, mental or physical disability, including perceived disability, and AIDS and HIV status. Employees and supervisors who, through such discriminatory words, actions, or conduct, create a work environment hostile to fellow workers or those using township services, are subject to disciplinary action, including and up to immediate termination. And that is part of not only the policies and procedures of the municipality, but also the rules and regulations of the paramilitary organizations that Councilor Schlager referred to, the police department, the fire department, across the board. So I did not want to let the topic go without at least affirming that in response to the councilor's comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stafford. That covers a lot. That's great. Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear it. Okay.
Thank you. And I'll just say as well, I think, thank you for that, Mr. Stafford. It's pretty comprehensive there. I'd probably say listening to all the comments, I likely know why. I find myself agreeing with a lot of what Councilman Cummings said, probably from the educational space. I have seen absolutely firsthand, well-intended HIB and bullying laws, go awry in terms of how they're used, quite frankly, used as bullying tools at sometimes. Additionally, opportunities where conversations can be had with kids to, have a conversation, correct the behavior, often turned into litigation and move beyond that very quickly, even though it was well intended again. So I think there is major challenge in how you do that. There's also the challenges around speech, et cetera, and certainly some of the things in here note that and speak to that. So certainly a difficult area to navigate, probably a reason why many places don't have it. But I would say, my only offering, and I think Councilman Yacobelos, would be a focus on, recognizing and working with kids on how to de-escalate bullying, how to learn from bullying. That's a space I think there can, in my opinion, be some positive work done. In this case, having an ordinance criminalizing, bullying and looking at these pieces, I think that's a much harder space to be in. So I'll just put my point of emphasis that I think, again, that part of it of educating how to help when you see students bullying one another, how to have conversations with them, how to train them to interact differently, how to, have those pieces is constructive, moving into this space a little more, I think is more problematic. So, again, echoing a little bit what Councilman Cummings alluded to, I would just echo his statements there.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that.
Mayor, if I may add, a couple of years ago, as a result of a suicide at Montclair High School, Matt Jackson put together a task force to take a look at the suicides and what we can do. And Sue Porterways and myself was working with Andy Evangelista and the nurse at the Board of Ed, along with Shavonda Sumter at Mountainside. It progressed quite a bit, but for various and sundry reasons, it kind of dissipated. But there's already somewhat of a foundation for what the Councilor Yacobelos wants to do. Not the third party, but within town, within the municipal infrastructure, working with Mountainside and the Board of Ed and ourselves, that work has already started. So it's something we can build upon.
Thank you. Okay, that was a discussion, which is exactly what we had. So thank you very much, everybody. Next, we have Resolution R-21-139. Councilwoman Schlager, would you mind?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Whereas invoices against the Township of Montclair in favor of the following persons for the amount set opposite their respective names have been received, duly audited, and found correct. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the Township of Montclair in the County of Essex that said invoices be and they are hereby ordered paid and the checks be drawn by the Finance Department to the order of such persons to the amounts respectively and hereinafter stated on the schedule attached hereto and made a part hereof. This bill list is dated June 22nd, 2021 for the amount of $6,029,167.79, and I so move.
Second.
Been seconded. Questions, concerns, or comments? Councilwoman Schlager.
I have a couple of questions. On page, my gosh, I can't, 3, with the big bellies. The numbers are so tiny. I'm sorry. The big belly invoice for $8,841.86. Are those for replacement bellies or new bellies?
No, ma'am. Those are our monthly fees.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Okay. Also on page 4, there's a payment for Cleary, Giacobbe, Alfieri, and Jacobs, but it's cut off. Says what's presenting the township in the matter.
The matter is the Constellation New Energy Incorporated federal litigation that was discussed recently in executive session.
Wow. Okay, great. Thank you. And let's see. My earmark pages here. 1 second. I'm sorry for the delay. And shoot. Oh, there was one for the shuttle bus. Is the shuttle bus up and running? Are we back to kind of normal shuttle bus service?
The service is running, but not in the traditional shuttle form. We continue to use rideshare for places the shuttle would otherwise go and medical appointments.
Okay. And I think that was it. I did maybe this is for later. It's not on the bill list. I'll wait till later. But thank you very much, Mr. Stafford. Thanks.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Counselor Cummings,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock,
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams,
Yes.
Counselor Russo,
Yes.
Counselor Schlager,
Yes.
Counselor Yacovelis,
Yes.
Mayor Spiller.
Yes. All right, next is Resolution R-21-14-0. It's a resolution authorizing executive session without the public being permitted to attend in accordance with NJSA 10:4-12B. The subject is personnel, and I so move.
Second.
Mayor, I beg your pardon, but I think that there was an item after the bills list, number 25.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yeah.
Apologize. Oh, yep. All right. We have one other item which was added onto there. Thank you so much. I just put that down. Here we go. Next, we have a resolution R-21-141. It's a resolution in support of the proposed New Jersey legislation A5207-S3361, prohibiting contracts between federal government and state or local agencies concerning facilities for incarcerated immigrants. Correct.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Russo.
I want to speak in support of this because our state senator, Mia Gill, has put this forward, and that's why I'm supporting it and talked to her about it. And it's a continuation of what Essex County voted to do. Discussed this with the commissioner, former freeholder president, Brendan Gill. I mean, we're all moving away from this incarceration of people. And I think it's a good thing to do to support our state senators' bills to curtail or to have us gradually get out of this business with the ICE. Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Councilman Yacovelis.
At risk of being repetitive, I mean, I concur. We did ask for this. Councilor Russo and I asked for this because of those reasons, because of those conversations. Councilor Price Abrams as well. I think, and again, this goes back to, I understand this goes back to the earlier conversation, but sometimes it's important to just have a statement of values. And this is just another one of those cases. And by the way, I think sort of following what the county has done already in terms of divesting from this enterprise, or planning to at least. I think it's a good move for us.
Any Councilman Deputy Mayor Hurlock?
You keep demoting me tonight, Mr. Mayor. I go back to councilman and deputy mayor.
I was just going to call on someone else, Deputy Mayor. That's all.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. That's a good recovery, Mr. Mayor. Well done. That's why you're in the middle seat. Yeah, I don't want to keep going back and forth about comments and statements and everything. I've said what I've said about, why I'm abstaining on these and why I have for the last 8 years. And I will continue to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Okay, all those in favor, did someone move it?
I'll move it.
It's moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstention, Mr. Mayor.
All right, it passes. Thank you. Now, I apologize.
Could we just offer our congratulations to the class of 2021 who will be graduating Montclair High School on Thursday?
Big congratulations. Big congratulations, absolutely.
And to David Cummings' daughter?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Robin.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Okay. Go ahead, Mayor.
Yes, thank you.
Maybe while we're on that point, just because I know that Robin, MFEE is doing something in Ishuane Park on Thursday, and everyone's invited to sort of help celebrate this year that ended finally. So not jumping into all the comments for later, but just to pile on your piece, that all the students who made it through this year, I know are being celebrated by MFEE this year. Carry on.
All right. Resolution R-21-140, which is a resolution authorizing executive session without the public being permitted to attend in accordance with NJSA 10:4-12B, subject personnel, and I so move.
I'll second it again, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstentions? Okay, we will move into executive session. right.
Go ahead.
So we've moved this out of executive session at this point. Appreciate that. Would someone like to make a motion to reaffirm the actions taken during executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. With that, would with the will of the body, would you like to go around and give announcements? You can make it as long or short as you want. So let's start. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be real short because it is late. I just want to say, and I know many of us have been together, there's been a lot of ribbon cuttings, which really is a great testimony to the people of Montclair and the resiliency, particularly during the pandemic. In addition, I've had the privilege of participating as things are opening up with a couple of the Eagle Scout ceremonies from Troop 12 here in Montclair. Great job done all the way around from all the candidates. And Mr. Mayor, also working with the full-time task force for the schools. And thank you again for appointing me as your designee. And just want to thank Ms. Portuese. You know, she's done a great job all these years. I participated in a lot of her programs, her wellness programs. Really well done, job well done. Going to miss her. Looking forward to her replacement. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you're muted, Mr.
Oh, let's go to Councilwoman Schlager.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Mayor. Like I said before, I wanted to congratulate the class of 2021 for the graduating class at Montclair High School. We're so proud of all of them, and I'm looking forward to their commencement on Thursday. I had a couple of questions and I had a suggestion. So first, my suggestion is, I was very impressed with the beautiful flowers that were planted around the fountain, Lori, by the fountain in your ward. The flowers look really beautiful. I think that the garden club planted them. Somebody from
The bid may have been responsible for that.
Was it
in conjunction with the garden club? I'm not aware.
Okay. Well, they look really great. So I wanted to make a suggestion, and maybe Lori, you would agree, that till the fountain comes sometime, hopefully in the next, well, whenever it does come, maybe we could keep that up. Maybe in the fall we could plant mums. Maybe we could plant a tree. Maybe it looks really beautiful, and hopefully that can continue till where the installation of the fountain. The other thing I wanted to ask Mr. Stafford, it happened to me twice this past week where I've parked on a meter and they were broken. And it's mostly coins are jammed into the little slot. I had to use my credit card, which was fine, but you know, for 15 minutes, you know, I'd rather just put a quarter in. So I don't know what can be done to fix them, or is there a plan that
our parking utility staff go every day looking at the meters to ensure that they're not broken. I will tell you candidly that much like across the country, across the board, there is a shortage of parts to fix meters. So our folks work diligently. It's no different than the shortage with chlorine that we're experiencing, and that everyone's experiencing shortage of plywood, shortage of chicken, etc. But our folks do work diligently. We have spare meter heads, we have spare meter parts, and if we need something, we work as hard as we possibly can to get it, and they do work. I think, Mr. Scantlebury, you're more on top of this than I, but I think it would be appropriate to say they work feverishly to try and limit the number of meters that are broken. However, they're constrained now by the national part shortage.
Everything Mr. Stafford said is absolutely correct. I get a report weekly from the utility, and out of 1,300 meters, I think, through town, we average about 60 that are out. So they are on top of it. But you know, the coins being stuck in there, a lot of that is done purposefully.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you know, unless you have someone standing there 24/7, you know, people are going to do that. You know, people
Right.
do that. But if the coins don't work, you use your credit card. You have there are options. There are 3 different options you could use.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you also, Councilwoman, one of the big discussions, and I know that, you know, the parking management team always brings this up, at least when I speak to them, that they would be thrilled, and we are all moving closer and closer to this, where they just do not take coins anymore. And it do not be a problem, right? I mean, especially with the pandemic and everyone going, cashless in many regards. It's moved us a lot closer to that place. But I will tell you that the manager and deputy manager are correct, and exactly from what I hear, almost all of that is intentional jamming. So if we really want these meter heads that aren't constantly being replaced and constantly being, think of all the time that's put in to constantly manage those broken meters and trying to find parts and the time and expense of that, it is moving to a system where it is cashless, both, and moving to the apps and also to your credit card. And that would cut down on all of this. So just a note, of course, that's a policy decision for us at some point to kind of move on, but it's on the horizon.
Great. Okay. Thank you all. Thanks very much.
Let's go to, third, Councilwoman Price Abrams.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick comments. On June 13th, a couple of Sundays ago, Councilor Russo and I took part in a program over by the Inishwain Park, the Martin Luther King Memorial there. The Baha'i community here in Montclair, that apparently has had presence for many, many generations, held their, I think it's their second annual Race Amity Day. And the prior council, as many of you know, had created the second Sunday of June to be Race Amity Day, and the proclamation had then been issued. And it's my hope that we'll renew that one for our coming meeting. But there was a gathering of not a huge group. I think we can do some broader publicity in time, but we did make some wonderful connections of people of different faiths, and the idea that we will sort of stand up for one another and stand in support of just very fine values of Montclair that's motivated by their faith tradition. So that was a very inspiring program to participate in. I just want to also echo some of what Councilor Schlegel mentioned about, the school year's ending. It's been such a difficult year in so many ways due to the impact of COVID in every kind of direction. But, that there was the ability of many students to get back into the classroom and be together. And as I kind of noted quickly before, I know that MFEE is kind of acknowledging the students this year. And there'll be another thing over at that same spot by the Dr. King Memorial for the students on Thursday. And I'll leave it there for now, just wishing everybody a good rest of their evening.
All right. Thank you. Councilman Cummings.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to acknowledge that, next time we meet as a group, it'll probably be a year since we've been in office. And I think in that time, we really haven't had the benefit to have the intimate meetings. And going forward, I hope we can get to a point where we're back at it in the space. I mean, we still haven't taken I think the other day was the first time we really took a group photo without a mask on. So I hope that as we move forward, that's something we do. And I want to finally, I really want to say something to the Beyond Policing folks. And this is just, as a counselor, I'm responsible to respond to anyone and interact with anyone. And I'm all for civic engagement. And I think Beyond Policing, what they bring up, their concerns are true. But, I have to say, one of the things that I had discussions with them about regarding, how we interact with mental health calls and things. And I put forward to them, I said, look, let's have a conversation with Chief Conforti and Lieutenant Williams. And they said no. And so I don't see that as a way of really moving forward if you're not willing to talk to the individuals that effectively would have to implement anything. As a counselor, I feel as though just as much I have to give them respect, I have to give the department respect. And Chief Conforti and Lieutenant Williams were all in to do the call. And, so I want to just say that, I think continuing to call in and say the same thing, you have the right to do that. But how do we move beyond that without having the discussion with the individuals that effectively will have the biggest part of the change? So I just want to say that as something that I feel of as we've gotten these calls that I had to put out there, because to be honest with you, I think our police department truly reflects this township. And I think the work that they do is one of the reasons we have not had some of the tragedies that we've seen in this country, because one of the things you hate to say is never here, right? You know, we never thought it would happen here. And I don't hope we ever have to say that. But I think the men that we have, men and women, I really believe that they are a good reflection of our community. And to the point earlier, class of 2021, congratulations. I am proud to know and happy to say that my daughter will be able to walk across that bridge, receiving her diploma. And by that, she will be extending a Cummings family tradition that goes back to the 1940s. So we've had one walk over that bridge every every decade since the 1940s. And my Aunt Betty from the class of 1946 was here tonight to see my daughter off to the prom. So for me, that's a part of Montclair that many people will not be able to see over time just because of the way the world is, but it's something that I take very serious and really, really treasure. So to my council mates, I think you learn every year. So I expect that we will do better next year than what we did this year. And I do look forward to the time when we will be able to really sit at that dais and talk to one another in person. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Jacobellis.
Thanks, Mayor. David, I look forward to that too. I think, we did do something historic tonight, right? And you should feel good about this. I mean, we did something that not a lot of places in the country have done. In fact, we've done something that's opposite of what a lot of places in the country have done in terms of the gender neutral restroom bill. That's a big deal. I'm already getting emails and Facebook messages and things from people whose lives this touches. When we raised the flag at Town Hall and we did the trans inclusive flag at Town Hall just a few weeks ago, we were looking at the very people that this affects in the face and telling them that we're raising this flag over the town to signal our desire to, protect and afford them certain rights. So I'm really, really proud of the actions we took on a host of issues tonight to protect the transgender community in particular, and then of course the LGBT community on some other fronts. And we should feel really proud about that. It's a big deal. I won't bore you all with all the events. I've been at many events with you, but it's been, I think, a really great month so far in terms of both Pride and Juneteenth. And I'm just really excited to see how the town has come alive in terms of these events. And I think just from a social justice perspective, like we have each other's backs, whether it's AAPI or it's anti-Semitism issues or it's Juneteenth and dealing with the harms of slavery, or whether it's Pride and dealing with what the LGBTQ movement has been through. Like everybody is showing up for each other's events and being there and supportive. And I think we've been through some of the worst times, and I think we're seeing a lot of bright things most recently. So I'm really hopeful about our future too, David, as you mentioned, learning year after year. So thanks everybody for the collaboration, and have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Russo.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to take off on what Councilor Cummings said, I went to the Essex Health and Wellness Recovery Center's anniversary celebration, which honored Charles Cunningham, one of our police officers who heads the device crime unit. And two of his colleagues were there, and I sat with our police chief and our deputy chief from 40 and Will Young and those officers. So I was representing us there and gave them a proclamation from our Essex Commissioner, Brendan Gill, and that honored Chuck Cunningham. I made a speech there about how we have to really balance all these different factors and forces. And I want people to communicate, as Councilor Cummings said. But I pointed out to everyone that I did work for about a year or two in the sheriff's office. My father was a 20-year veteran of the sheriff's office, the ID Bureau, which took fingerprints in. I worked for the Attorney General in Consumer Affairs, enforcing the AG's laws and regulations under the Office of the Attorney General. And So I have a law enforcement background as well as a teaching background. And I understand the needs of our police. And I think that the body cams that we've now purchased, hopefully we're going to get complete coverage by the state for that. But the chief himself says this is good for police. Our former deputy counselor, deputy mayor, and deputy chief, Roger Terry, says any good cop would wear them. And we've seen what's happened all over the country. So I made a very good point of saying that this is something where we're making some reforms, but it costs money. So when people talk about, cutting, but they also want to spend the money to do this, which is the body cams, which we know are all coming. They're part of our state law. You have to be consistent. The other thing I wanted to announce is that the Premier Dance Group, which is at 180, still at 180 Bloomfield Avenue, is having their annual event this year, thanks to Councilman Cummings helping out, and I think the school system, Dr. Pons, at Glenfield School again. They're going to have a nice program this Saturday at 6 p.m. and Sunday at 4 p.m. That's Premier Dance. Shalise Wiggins, it's this weekend. I did attend today the dedication of the new college hall at Montclair State. I did that as a faculty member, where President Susan Cole was honored by renaming the whole college hall, the original building of Montclair State, as Susan Cole Hall. And I took some pictures with her, gave her our best wishes, and a pin of the 150th anniversary. Brian, you'd like that, of Montclair. She appreciated that, and I think we all should wish her good luck. The new president's coming on board soon. I'm in contact with him so he can be welcomed to Montclair properly. She did point out when she spoke that the school was located in 1908 in Montclair rather than Little Falls, because they said, she quoted that they said Montclair was a place with very few saloons, and we had a reputation, that we had a very good reputation as a town. So it was very humorous how she said that the choice of Montclair was made. There was only Trenton State Teachers College, and they made Montclair State Teachers College a normal school at the time. I think I have one other thing that is important to mention, that our Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill was trying to help us fight to help our taxpayers. Yesterday, I represented us and I represented my teachers union, actually AFT, in a session at the Woodland Park location with Mayor Kaczmarek, and it was try to get this bill passed in Washington that will change, or the budget amendment that will change the ability to deduct. It's called a SALT deduction, because our taxpayers especially are burdened and they can't deduct for improvements or purchases and their federal taxes. So I want to commend Congresswoman Sherrill for trying to work on that. Mikey's been doing this all over the country, and she needs a lot of help, because opposition comes from two sources: from my old friend Bernie Sanders, who I always supported, and from the Republican Party people. They both don't want to go along with what would really help New Jersey. So there's a federal issue again, the SALT deduction that we have Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill working on, but it's something that we might want to take a stand on too, to be supportive of her. By the way, there is a young lady in Montclair who some of you might have heard from. She wants to become Miss New Jersey. Her name is Taylor Lee, and she may be approaching people for help getting to be sponsored. A Montclair High School graduate, Taylor Lee. So look out for that. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stafford.
Thank you, Mayor. But mindful of the time, I have nothing tonight other than to say thank you and congratulations to Ms. Portuese.
Mr. Scantlebury.
I just have a couple of things, going back to what Councilor Cummings said. I don't know if anyone can see this, but this is his aunt. He was speaking about class of 46. I have some pictures in my phone. My mom was also the class of 46, and walking over that bridge is a generational thing. Also, Councilor, you've only been here a year, but you're going to find that some people would rather have the issues than the resolution. So that aside, I want to give a shout out to Sue Portuese also. I was aware of Sue before I knew Sue, when I was the Director of Citizen Services for the County of Essex. And she's put in work for decades, and I can't say enough about the work Sue's put in, and she's going to be missed. That's it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Karasik.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bermudez-Nieves.
No report, thank you.
Don't sound so excited about that.
Yeah, really.
On that one, I'll just say certainly kudos. We've been at a lot of different events with so many of you. You're right. There's a lot going on in town, and certainly the impacts that everyone is having and things that are that we're a part of. It's exciting to see the township, and it's exciting, even as you noted, Councilman Cummings. It's excited that people are doing what we need to do in terms of getting vaccinated. It's still not over yet, but getting vaccinated, doing that work, so we can start to be out here, start to be able to come together, start to be able to see each other. So it is great to do that. I'll echo everything everyone said. I'll just simply add, it was really just an honor to be able to be at some of the events around Juneteenth, and to have the opportunity to speak. And it was one of the callers noted who called in today. It was pretty powerful to be with a group, and certainly also Congressman Payne, who spoke, and certainly Congressman Bonnie Watson Coleman, who was there, but also just a number of individuals who we're talking about how we take that to action. And what can happen. So, certainly I was honored to be a part of that. And of course, Larry Ham from Montclair, just a great leader in that space. So a big thank you to all from Montclair. And there was a strong Montclair contingent who showed up to that and were part of that. And so appreciate your efforts there. And with that, we will see everybody at the next meeting, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Good
Thanks for
night.
the photo, Brian. I'll make sure Aunt Betty looks to look.
Aunt Betty.